Welcome to the Brain Coffee Podcast, where doctors Eric Leuthardt and Albert Kim unlock life's little mysteries about health, wellness, entertainment, technology, and how the brain makes sense of it all. Sit back, relax, and open up your mind.
You went on a cruise, right?
Yeah, for my first cruise. I'd never been on one before. I was a little afraid of it because, I tend to get seasick on smaller boats, and we were worried, but it was fine. It's a big boat, so
that was cool.
Fine. There are a few problems still.
Like what?
I mean, I always have trouble sleeping in these whether it's like a nice hotel or I guess in this cruise. The bed's too soft for me. I'm like Princess and the Pea. I need like a firm surface to sleep on.
Really?
Which is kind of crazy considering we could sleep on a dime in a residence.
Right, totally. I could like fall asleep on a chair.
Yeah, so I just kind of had bad sleep and,
Do you take anything for it?
No, not really. I don't. I know they're new things that we probably prescribe some of these things, right? But no, I just kind of grin and bear it.
And the interesting thing is, you're right that a lot of times we will prescribe various medications to help sleep, but I avoid them a lot. And
I know. I think they should be sort of the last ditch effort, right? I mean, there are other things you can do to improve your sleep before you head to medications.
Right. Well, the funny thing is, like I'm a different sensitive sleeper in the sense of.
Oh yeah, what happens? What are you sensitive
to? So for instance, like if there's any sound, like I can't go to sleep. So as an example, like I think it was like 2 weeks ago, like some neighbor a block away was having a party, and there was just this kind of just you could hear this thump thump thump, like and I was like do I call the police or do I notify
no one else can hear it in your house though, right?
Right. Well, the thing is, my significant other, she's like, well, you were the loudest snorer in the world, and so I although I didn't deny this emphatically, I always snore, and
you're immune to your own sounds.
It's really interesting, but like this dun dun dun, like this subtle sound. I was like, this has got to stop, yet she has to suffer through my my loud snoring every night.
Yeah. I'm sure you didn't think Ambien when you heard the thumping. You probably just, I don't know, maybe put earplugs in or call the other house or something, right? What kind of things would you think about doing?
Well,
improve your sleep hygiene or whatever they call it.
Well, that is good. Actually, a couple years back, I had a lot. I was kind of chronically sleepy, and I actually saw a sleep specialist. And I think one of the things as far as sleep hygiene is there's several relatively straightforward things. I actually kind of stayed off it to this day. Is like he said, okay, stop all caffeine and all alcohol for a month.
Oh,
not that I was
that'd be hard for
a heavy caffeine drinker, but the caffeine was tough, and certainly I think staying off the caffeine is an important sleep hygiene.
So something like after 3 p.m. don't drink any coffee, something like that.
Right. Ideally, if you should. If you're truly trying to kind of correct sleep or you're having problems chronically sleeping, you guys get off it completely. And actually, the truth is, after I did that, my sleep got a lot better.
I see.
And I think you do get into this negative cycle where you're sleepy, you drink some coffee, or you drink some tea or something like that, kind of peps you up, and then you feel more sleepy, and you take it through the day to kind of keep you going, and then you get home, and it's hard to get to sleep or get high quality sleep.
Right. And maybe just to get more specific about it, there are a few different parts of sleep, right? Some people have trouble getting to sleep, right? Some people have trouble staying asleep. And then some people think, maybe some people sleep just fine, but they feel like they're not getting enough sleep.
Well, that's, when you think about sleep, there's these numerous phases of sleep,
right.
Where you've got, kind of the big categories are kind of, REM and non-REM, REM standing for rapid eye movement. And,
right.
And during these different, sleep stages, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you've got slow wave sleep and then, REM sleep. And each of them is really important for kind of, your brain's homeostasis.
Right. Whatever it is, getting rid of toxins or consolidating memory or, things we've talked about in the past.
But what's interesting is actually all mammalian, virtually every kind of living thing sleeps.
Right.
But we actually don't really understand kind of what sleep does. Like yeast sleep, I think. Fruit flies sleep, and everybody has a circadian rhythm. And it does something that is metabolically important for our brains or our physiology. Right. We don't quite understand it. But some people, can't go to sleep, like me and the guy partying down a block down the road. Some people kind of, wake up, kind of frequently. But sometimes people sleep, and the quality of their sleep is poor. And again, we mentioned, kind of REM and slow wave, and basically you're not getting those critical stages of sleep that allow your brain to do whatever it does, to kind of make it healthier when you wake up. Yeah. And as a classic example, I think, is I don't know if you've ever had this situation where you got for dinner, and maybe you get a couple glasses of wine, nothing excessive, but afterwards your sleep is terrible. That's what happened to me.
Oh yeah. I mean, you probably your slow wave sleep is disrupted in that case.
Or your REM. And, that you basically, even though you are asleep, that the quality of it is not restful.
Yeah, and so the medications we use, they affect the...
Same thing, right?
They affect the stages, yeah. So the original thing we used to use, right, the sedatives are benzodiazepines, right? Like Ativan or things like that. Alprazolam or Xanax, I guess, is a very common one people take for for sleep. But the problem is you get addicted to that, right?
Right, and the quality of the sleep is poor. Meaning that, I mean, again, these benzos, what they're doing is they're basically attaching to your GABA receptors, which are those are the receptors on your neurons that inhibit neural function, right? So I think they're globally suppressing brain function.
Yeah, that's right. It's the GABA A channel, right? When the medicine engages, a certain salt flows through, and then you're inhibited, right?
Right, exactly. The interesting thing is sleep is not really an inhibition of brain function, right? It's actually quite an active process.
Yeah, it is.
It's just an alteration of kind of your conscious state, but it's a deliberate, active process where your brain has to do something to kind of reset it for the next day of consciousness.
Right. So,
but global inhibition is not actually sleep.
That's true. I mean, the only thing that maybe you can argue is inhibited is input from the outside, right?
That's right.
So there's this internal dialogue occurring when you're sleeping, but you can't really, hopefully you can't hear the thumping from the next house.
Or my own snoring.
Yeah, right, exactly. So there are newer drugs. So the problem with the old set of drugs for these receptors is that you would get addicted, and then you would have other problems. I mean,
rebound anxiety.
Yeah. So you stop taking it, and you have withdrawal and rebound. I mean, or the worst thing, it also inhibits other things eventually, like your drive to breathe, right?
Right. So which is a problem.
Yeah. So if you overdose on benzodiazepines, you'll stop breathing, and that's why people will die, right? So
wasn't that Michael Jackson? They were putting him to sleep with propofol.
Right.
And a benzodiazepine.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that was part of the reason that
he probably stopped breathing.
Yeah. Exactly.
So they have newer drugs, again, probably that we prescribe, that I'm sure that you prescribe. I mean, like Zolpidem or Ambien, I guess more commonly called. And apparently it's the same receptor, GABA A receptor, but it's a different site.
Interesting.
So you don't get all these other effects as much. They call it hypnotic effects, but you don't have the anxiolytic effects, the anti-anxiety effects, or some of these other things. But I don't know how long.
But Ambien also is, I don't think it's as addictive, but people become dependent on it.
Yes, it's still addictive, that's right.
It helps them get to sleep, but the problem is they become dependent that if they're going to get to sleep, they have to take it.
That's right, yeah. So I mean, I only give patients just a couple of pills, but apparently you can only do that for a couple of months, and after that, like you said,
it really becomes challenging. That's right. Yeah.
I mean, there are also other weird things about Ambien you hear, on the news.
Yeah. I mean, and this is, again, I'm definitely exiting my level of expertise.
Yeah, me too. But I've just heard them on the news.
Where, for instance, there's these, you hear about stories. I think there's one, in Britain not too long ago where, people are absolved of murders because they basically were taking Ambien, and they apparently woke up or didn't wake up, and they either strangled or killed a spouse, and they didn't remember it.
Right.
Hard to know,
so we're talking about super rare things. I don't know. These people might have been screwed up in some other way to begin with, but there have been some of the side effects that are noted for this drug. Things like sleepwalking.
That's right. That's a good
sleep
point.
Driving. I heard
sleep murdering. Right.
But doing things and you don't know they're going on because it's hypnotic,
so. Right. That's a good point.
Yeah. So I mean, the question I guess is, I mean, are those people still responsible? I mean, this is not a medical question anymore.
It's more philosophical.
Or
like
legal.
If your body commits a murder, are you still responsible for what your body does if your brain is in some way not participating?
Yeah, right.
Or a part of your brain's participating and not the full person that you are.
I'm not sure.
I guess do you imprison the body?
At the same time, there's an interesting parallel here to REM. In REM, you think and dream crazy things, right? But your body's paralyzed, intentionally by your brain. Mm-hmm. Maybe in some sense this is doing something like that, but then you're releasing that paralysis. I don't know. It's an interesting thing.
Actually, here's another interesting thing. Have you ever had sleep paralysis? Do you know the phenomenon of sleep paralysis?
I don't know if. Not pathologically, but I've definitely had dreams where...
Well, there's a very, it's actually documented really through kind of medieval times there's very characteristic features for kind of what is called sleep paralysis, where basically you wake up and you're having a nightmare, and you can't move, and you feel paralyzed. And very commonly, and again, this has been described in literature, both scientifically as well as going back, not millennia, but centuries, and there's some type of quote unquote demonic or negative presence associated with that sleep paralysis.
Oh, right.
And there's these really famous paintings from Renaissance times about the demon sitting on somebody's chest, right?
I see.
But
I've definitely experienced something like that. I mean,
I've had that happen. Where you think you're awake. You can't move, and then there's something bad happening, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I don't know when the last time might have been, but maybe in high school, some aliens chasing me. You're trying to run, but it feels like your legs are in molasses, right? But then you kind of start sensing you might be in a dream, right?
Yeah, and you can't.
This transition period,
I just remember very clearly, I was in bed and I was awake, or I thought I was awake, but and so there was some kind of devil or something like that, but I couldn't move, and I was terrified. It was, but I always remember that experience. But I think that gets at this issue of REM and kind of where I think that your brain was a little out of kilter, where basically it was still paralyzing you.
Right.
It was still letting you dream, but you were more awake than you should have been.
Yeah, exactly. But it is really interesting. So the REM, and you probably know this better than I do. Your brain activity during REM. If you look at it on an EEG, looks more like when you're awake.
It looks identical to when you're awake. That's right.
I mean, it's just that some of the motor pathways are inhibited, so you have this sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
But your brain looks like it's awake when it's dreaming.
Well, and that's why it's called rapid eye movement. REM is that your eyes are moving as if you're interacting with some kind of external world, right?
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So now you're having it's even though you're unconscious, it's very conscious-like in terms of the physiology and what your body's doing, with the exception of your body.
Right, and because of this phenomenon, I mean, you have all these sci-fi stories, what is the real world? Is it the dream
type
world?
Of stuff,
exactly. You can totally see where that comes from.
There was a kind of this movement. Oh, what is it called? Deliberate dreaming, or some type of where people can train themselves to wake up in their dreams.
There's a movie coming out on this, Lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreaming, that's it, right. And one of the graduate students in my laboratory was practicing lucid dreaming, where you can become aware that you're in a dream, and then kind of you can fly, you can do, you can be in your virtual world in your brain.
Oh, that's interesting.
And you can, you say, I want to lift this building, or I want to turn into a dragon or a caterpillar or whatever, and and you can do it. And so there's some really avid proponents of this idea of lucid dreaming.
I think you have to try that.
You have to, I think, we were actually thinking of creating a brain computer. He wanted to create a brain computer interface for lucid dreaming, so wear a headset, and as it picks out that you're in REM, gives you a ding or a bell, so that you can have some stimuli to know you're in.
I see.
In the dream.
It's like the equivalent of pinching yourself.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I actually learned how to do hypnosis when I was a resident, so I could actually hypnotize my ECOG patients.
Did it work?
It did. One of the patients I think got so hypnotized, and we looked at the brain rhythm changes, and there were theta rhythm changes.
Huh.
So I think it's probably a form of induced meditation.
Oh yeah, I can believe that. Yeah. And you have to be open to it. It's not like someone's controlling your mind.
Yeah, right. No, that's right.
You need to volunteer yourself for it. I do think that's probably true because some people are more susceptible than others.
Right. Like if you don't want to be hypnotized, you're not getting hypnotized.
Yeah,
it's kind of like if you
that.
don't want to meditate, you're not going to get into a meditative state, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think I guess maybe the way to think about hypnosis, it's coached meditation.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I mean, I don't know a ton about it, but I can buy that. That's probably a good thing.
Have you ever been to a hypnosis show?
I was just watching one on YouTube, actually. It's funny that you ask, yeah.
I mean, and I remember there was a hypnosis show when I was in college, and they had people doing crazy things.
Yeah, one wonders about that, especially in front of an audience, going to sleep instantaneously.
Right.
The whatever hypnotist says, act like a chicken.
Right, right, exactly.
Why is it a chicken? I don't know. I don't know why. I like chickens, but
right. But they always have to make you act like a chicken. I actually think they did that in my hypnosis show. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's a meme. Have you been following this amazing story in Thailand about the
absolutely
the 12-year-old soccer kids?
Yeah, and they got stuck in a cave 2 miles in.
I know. It's amazing that they could get these kids. I really fear for their lives. I mean, some of the divers were going.
One diver died.
Yeah, one diver died, but they're going through caverns 3 miles underwater just to reach these guys, right?
It's extraordinary.
It's amazing, and I heard they had the oxygen in the cave was hovering on 15%.
Really?
Yeah. So it's 21% for us.
Right.
And the difference between the atmosphere and our bodies causes the diffusion. That's how we get oxygen.
Right.
I mean, you're at 15% now. That's
really pushing it.
Yeah, that's our hypoxia.
And they didn't eat for 9 days.
Oh, right.
Right. So I mean, the whole kind of physiology is really like, for instance, when they first found them, they could only give them small amounts of food. Did you know about this? Right, because if you're starving for a long period of time and then you eat a lot, it'll create an enormous metabolic.
You use more oxygen.
Well, no. So if you are starving, your body goes into a kind of a starvation metabolism, and so that if you suddenly have a large caloric load at that point, I think like you become extraordinarily ketotic. And it actually becomes life-threatening.
Oh, interesting.
And so anybody who's starving, so for instance, when in World War II, as an example, when they went to kind of the concentration camps, like if they had to give all the people who had been chronically starved for weeks, if not months, small amounts of bread, because if they gave them like a big loaf of bread, they would die.
I see.
And
sounds kind of mean when you look.
But it's
but I know what you mean.
But it's medically appropriate. So they could only give these kids small amounts of food when they first found. Right, exactly, and they had to ramp them up to actually be able to eat normally for the next day or two.
Oh, interesting.
And so the physiology is and they're oxygen deprived.
Oh yeah. So, in the recent incredible sequel, the mom superhero was also losing oxygen in the plane at the end. So that was an acute drop in oxygen, and she was just all loony. Here, it is just kind of slowly going down, hovering at just this level where you might start having something like altitude sickness, kind of like that. Kind of like you're in a mountain or something, right? But in a cave, it's different. Your CO2 can also rise in that cave. I mean, because of the kids and things like that.
Right.
So high CO2 also is really dangerous.
Right. Well, and then superimpose on that, the way to get them out was to have them go dive through kind of a couple miles of water.
Oh yeah, that was nuts.
I mean, the whole a whole nother level of physiologic perturbation.
Oh yeah.
That's why they said there's only a few divers in the world who can manage that dive.
Right. I mean, it was. If you think about it, I mean, there might have been no solution to it. There might have been right. I mean, maybe the path that they took to get there was the rocks fell in. There was no. It could have been that there was no solution. And after 3 miles of swimming, one would wonder if you'll ever. I mean, it's amazing that they found them.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I guess Elon Musk, was trying to come to the rescue with making those little mini submarines.
Yeah. It looked like an obelisk or something.
Right. Exactly. And again, fortunately, they got the kids out before. But the fact that they were able to pull those kids through that 3 miles, and that they, for instance, didn't get the bends.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. So the bends. You mean, okay, so you dive deep, scuba divers for instance. The nitrogen in the oxygen, because there's a lot of nitrogen, like 40% or something in the air, that gets dissolved in the blood because of the high pressure.
Right.
And then if you come quickly up again,
basically the nitrogen, kind of like the nitrogen in your blood
bubbles
bubbles,
out. Yeah.
kind of like as if you're opening a Coke can, where basically the pressure changes, and that's why you get fizz.
Yeah,
right. And
right.
Fizz happens in your blood, and that clots off arteries.
Yeah, just like a fat ball would clog off your arteries. Exactly. You can get strokes and things like that.
Yeah. And it's extraordinarily painful.
Oh yeah, right. The bubbles form in your joints, and that's why you have the feeling of pain in the bends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
no, I guess that could have happened. I don't know how deep they were, but that's certainly possible, depending on how deep they had to go. And then because you see this thing on maps in the New York Times and things like that. You just see the 2D overview. You have no idea if they're going like
Right. Yeah. Like even a difference of 40 or 50 feet. That's
if you do it too fast.
If you do it too fast.
I see. That's interesting. So this submarine, they tabled it, huh?
Right. Well, I think they got the kids out as the submarine arrived. But you have to give Elon Musk credit for trying something new. And
I saw another thing of his at the Kennedy Space Center recently. I was just there for a day, and SpaceX took over, or at least is renting one of the launch pads. So I saw the SpaceX stuff on one of the launch pads at the Kennedy Space Center. But I've been hearing more about this other new thing.
Yeah, his next company is, which is obviously a topic near and dear to my heart, which is Neuralink. Where
what is that? Yeah.
So his first company was Tesla to make kind of electric cars. SpaceX to kind of make rockets. Now he wants to create a really robust brain-computer interface, and the idea being that he wants to record from a lot of different neurons in your brain, and have a seamless interaction between your brain and artificial intelligence to magnify your cognitive capabilities.
And this is at least somewhat grounded in his belief that AI might be a danger, right? Artificial intelligence might be dangerous.
And I think that so he thinks that AI is an existential threat, and he's talked about
like
that
Terminator
a lot.
style. Yeah,
right. That once you have truly what we call general intelligence, AI, meaning they can freely think and solve problems, that it becomes a threat for humans more broadly. And one solution that he thinks about in the context of Neuralink is that rather than being separate from the AI, if we can make AI a part of us and we can massively enhance our intelligence, that we then become the AIs that can kind of either compete or participate or supersede kind of AI intelligence.
I see.
So it's a long shot.
No, I like the idea, and augmentations. You and I are all into saving things that are already broken, right? I mean, augmentation would be a fantastic thing to look forward to. But
I think, and as we think about augmentation, I think there's some really interesting dimensions to this. You're right. Like historically, we as physicians, we restore function that's lost. Whether it be you've fractured your spine and we put that back together. You've broken a bone. You've lacerated an artery. You've got a brain injury. You've got something. You got a brain tumor. But I think there is historical precedence for kind of restoration transitioning to augmentation. I think that the most classic example is in plastic surgery. A lot of plastic surgery techniques, looked at historically, were for kind of for facial trauma, kind of reconstructing a nose, reconstructing a face. A lot of plastic surgery is done after mastectomies for breast cancer, but those techniques then got transformed to something else, right? To quite literally augmentative things. And I think that we'll see similar with neurotech. One can envision those same type of transitions, right? If we can, again, I work on brain-computer interfaces all the time, and hopefully the first brain-computer interface that we've been developing will be the first FDA-approved brain-computer interface this year. And it's to help patients with stroke.
I see.
But that's really the first domino. Is like once you can start creating these things and people can and there's low risk, do people use them to perk up your capabilities?
Memory, for instance.
Memory or attention. And imagine, and I always love to give this whenever I'm giving a talk. I gave a talk to a bunch of medical students. I said, okay, if you could have a small incision in your scalp, or something totally cosmetically tolerable, it's less risky than a tattoo, and I'm going to enhance your memory and your attention. Would you want it? All the hands go up.
Yeah,
right.
And
but I think maybe the bigger question is, should we do it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it entirely, if his vision, and this is not your specific.
Yeah.
I know about the BCI, the brain-computer interface that you've made. It's brilliant. It's going to help people with stroke, the IPSI hand.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if being plugged in necessarily fixes the danger of AI. It's just sort of.
That's true.
Just being plugged into them. I'm not. That it's still going to be a problem, possibly.
Possibly. Can it make us smart enough? Or more, can we handle the information enough to compete with an AI?
Or can they directly then completely,
turn us
pursue
into
a revolution?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Then we become machines that they can control too.
And then the other issue is, I know it's a small incision and potentially, but the risk of permanent implants, risk of infection and things like that.
I think those things can be handled. Although, maybe, because I think a lot of people like to talk about the danger of AI and also the risks of, for instance, if I could have access to your brain, are you hackable? Can we manipulate you?
Right.
But I think also to look on the positive side of this, from a social standpoint, is that the more we can enhance our intelligence, generally speaking, whether it be with AI, whether it be our own augmentation, I think there's a case to be made for improved intelligence to solve big problems. Meaning,
I agree with that.
So if you look at the last 30 years, what is really, if you look at our current neural augments, which are computers, right? That massive improvement in computation has solved a lot of problems that whether it be mapping out the human genome, whether it be a weather prediction, whether it be just everybody having computers and communication, that we've probably solved a lot more issues than we created.
With the processing power.
With the processing power.
I would agree.
If you can improve human intelligence to continue to be more creative and more innovative and have a better ability to solve problems, we've got big problems coming up, like, aging, population. How do you feed a population when it hits 10 billion? When you're past peak oil.
And they have dementia, for instance, from Alzheimer's.
Exactly. How do we solve these really, really global level problems? Well, we need to have a lot of intelligence to kind of create new solutions. So there, just as I think that there are the risks of privacy, manipulation, just surgical, medical risk, but are they offset by the potential for solving some really problems that threaten our species and our Earth?
Do you think it'd be, among the billionaires, there might be a nuclear arms type race to augment themselves, or?
Yeah,
then you have an objective advantage for certain things now,
right.
And you have, let's say, version 2.0. I got the version 1.0.
But isn't that already happening? You look at the competition in supercomputer creation. Every year or so, you hear about one nation having the biggest, baddest, fastest, supercomputer, and how that gives them some advantage for something.
Yeah.
But I guess could that look quaint 20 years from now? Where basically, who's got the most intellectually high-powered, population?
Right. Does it look as palatable at the individual level? There's all these court cases about affirmative action and things like that. Particularly about Asian Americans recently, at the individual level, if you have an advantage because of a brain-computer interface, what does that mean? What does that look like? How does what are the optics on that thing?
Yeah, there definitely are optics. Yeah. Although again, how different is it from today? When you think about somebody from a higher socioeconomic status who's got access to
prep school or something,
a good computer, a really good mobile phone, who's always getting online tutoring or something like that, to somebody who's in a underdeveloped urban area who doesn't have access to that.
I agree with that, but I can just imagine maybe the laser eyes staring at you,
right,
while you're interviewing him. It might be, but I understand. No, I understand. There are more layers behind that, but it might be a similar principle. I agree with that.
I guess it's in many ways. It's a more physical manifestation of the social stratification that we already see.
Right. It would be much more direct. In your face for sure, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're already doing this testing, like we were talking about before, of these brain-computer interfaces on animals, and I have dogs. You used to have dogs, actually. What I heard, they're trying to make communicators for these animals in the first phase of Neuralink.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, basically, so that they can essentially unlock the neural code of how information is being represented. And I guess once you do that on a little rodent level, can you enhance the ability to communicate with that rodent? Although interestingly, so there is a really interesting example out of Duke where they had 2 mice doing brain-to-brain communication. We're basically going to do one, so the mice had to accomplish a dual task, and like one mouse was in Brazil, one mouse was
They had to coordinate it.
And they had to coordinate, so they literally had to send, their brain signals would send over stimulation to one and to the other mouse, and that mouse would send stimulation back through their neural code.
I see.
And so they literally would share kind of
thoughts.
They would share thoughts to accomplish this task. And so I guess, where we could have a brain-computer interface in the future, I guess getting at your questions, like, can we have a pet-computer interface, or you can now, like, when the dog barks, you can say, hey.
Oh, you need to go. Oh, yeah, I need to go outside now. Yeah.
right. I guess it would elevate, if we all had brain-computer interfaces, could share thoughts. We can now share thoughts with not just humans anymore.
I wonder if you could gate your thoughts, though. You don't. You're thinking some things, you're saying other things. Not in an unethical way, but just to be a normal, polite person.
Right.
I wonder if dogs would do the same thing. I wonder if they're...
I don't think they would. I mean, I guess, they would probably, much like, my 4-year-old son, who, is happy to tell me, without filter about what he thinks about the world. You know what I mean?
I think the dogs might be more sincere. I think you're right about that.
They're totally be more sincere then.